My dad has late-stage cancer, and when I needed my husband to support me, I found out he was supporting himself into my best friend, who was posted by you. My husband and I have been dating since I was 19 and he was 22, and we've been married for 6 years now. We have 2 kids, and I'm 6 months pregnant with our. Thirdly, 2 years ago I found out my dad has stage 3 colon cancer. My dad is my only parent, as my mum passed away when I was 12. He's my favorite person, and life without him doesn't seem as colorful. He has a contagious laugh and gives these big bear hugs that make all your broken pieces feel perfectly in place again. When I've had a tough day, he doesn't pry or interrogate. He just lets me vent and listens. About 5 months ago, we found out the treatments aren't working. The doctor said it's not a matter of months, but years. Since then, he's gotten worse and is now losing his memory. He looked at the dog he got for me on my 21st birthday and said, "Wow, that's a nice dog. Where'd you get it?" My husband has been my absolute rock. He has been there for me, holding my hand and helping me through this. He's been so loving and attentive to both my kids and me. Don't get me wrong, I am a mother first, always. I don't allow myself. I've been trying to avoid dwelling on things. My kids are still loved, cared for and played with. I haven't let my responsibilities around the house slack. Once my dad got his updated prognosis, my husband encouraged me to quit my job. About a month later, we discovered we were pregnant again, and I still hadn't let go of my job. I was pregnant again, and my husband reassured me that it was still okay to quit my job. He said it would actually save us a small fortune on daycare costs. Anyway, so I did. I quit my job. My best friend and I have been friends since we were babies. Her family is like my family, and vice versa. My mum and her mum grew up together. She's been there for me through thick and thin. Right after my dad's appointment, when we found out he had so little time left, I drove straight to her house and she held me while I cried for hours. If there are soulmates in friend form, she is mine. My mum used to say that 2 friends who stick together through thick and thin are as close as 2 peas in a pod. This morning, as I was up with my 3-year-old, my colleague's alarm was going off, so I turned it off and woke him gently. He said he'd been up late working, so he took the morning off and rolled over to go back to sleep. As I went to turn off the rest of his alarms, I saw a text from my friend on his lock screen that said, "I'm assuming since there hasn't been an angry pregnant lady on my doorstep, you haven't told her about us yet." Time froze that moment. I took his phone, walked away and just read their conversations. 4 months this man has been sleeping with my best friend. 4 months these people have been lying to my face. I know what you're going to say. I could say you should have seen the warning signs, but I've been holding this phone for 2 hours and nothing. He's been really loving and attentive to me, but he always has been. He's kind and gentle. There have been no late night work sessions, except for once in a blue moon. There have been no long periods of time spent together. They've been touching each other and even glancing at each other, but they've been acting exactly as they have since the day I first introduced them. It's so strange that she calls him her brother, but she's been sleeping with him. I know that many people get a moment of clarity in situations like this, but I have none. Aside from being sad about my dad, I've changed. I'm still a loving wife and mother. I still care for him and my children. I talk to him about how he's doing and how his day was every single day. I haven't allowed myself to be overwhelmed. I know what I have to do, but I just don't want to. I'm about to lose my family and my support system in one. I'll confront him tomorrow. I just need this last 24 hours of peace. As for my best friend, I won't respond. I don't care why she did it. She did it and it's done. I was always a friend who cleaned up her messes. After today, I will cut her out of my life like she never mattered. This has to be the hardest storm I'll ever weather, but I know I'll sail through it, if not for me, then for my children. I've made a small update on everything going on now that my kids are in bed for the night. I spent the morning gathering everything I could and making a checklist. I spent most of the morning in my office, telling my husband I was preparing things for my dad. I wasn't completely lying, I did have to get him sorted with hospice today. My boss would be happy to have me back, but my lawyer said to hold off on that idea for now. My old boss did tell me that whenever he doesn't have access to my inheritance from my father or my mother. My lawyer told me that. I didn't mention her before, but my mother-in-law is an absolute angel. I love and adore her so much. She's always been a shoulder to lean on after he left for work. In the afternoon, I asked my ex-best friend's mum and my mother-in-law to meet me at my dad's house. My kids were outside playing with my ex-best friend's older brother. I handed them the screenshots, leaving out the unsavory pictures and the smash tape, though I did tell them it existed. They were furious. To put it lightly, they are completely on my side. My ex-best friend's mum is ready to cut contact with her daughter completely. She kept repeating how sorry she was. We hugged and cried together. My mother-in-law told me she couldn't believe she raised such a selfish, terrible human. She said that no matter what happens, I will always have her. From her perspective, she doesn't have a son, only a daughter. After an in-person meeting with my lawyer, we went over finances, logistics, and everything else you could think of. She has all the proof and she's out for revenge. Now that this post is on TikTok, I don't want he'll find out through an app, because one look at the story and he'll know it was about him. With permission from my lawyer, my ex-best friend, her parents, my soon-to-be ex-husband and his parents will be having a get-together tomorrow. By the time they are sitting down and showing them everything and letting them know my dad, my kids and my ex-best friend's brother. He's coming to help me with the kids and my dad, as being pregnant and big doesn't help with mobility. We'll be at my dad's cabin, a few hours away, enjoying time and space. I know a lot of people were hoping for me to get revenge or engage in some kind of psychological warfare. I've been engaged in psychological warfare, but honestly, after my kids went to bed, I took a shower and just broke down. I don't have the strength or energy to dish anything out. I just want out. I've been pretending like everything was okay, but today was too exhausting, and I just don't want to do it anymore. Once he finds out tomorrow, I'll update. I'm sure the fallout will be huge. For now, thank you all so much for your kindness, warmth and support. Your words have helped give me the strength to keep my head above water. I appreciate every single one of you for everything. Second update, 1 day later, for the sake of typing, I'll use fake names for context. My mother-in-law and father-in-law are Ruth and Joe, my ex-best friend's parents are Angie and Bob, my ex-best friend is Jess, my soon-to-be ex-husband is Tyler, and Jess's brother is Jake. I'll just refer to my dad as a dad. I have a few things I want to get through, so I'll summarize. I'll give you the lowdown on what's been going on. Yesterday, I had an appointment with my Jenna KA. I also tested for just about every STD and STI. The results are all negative, which is great. There are a few tests that take up to 2 weeks for results, so I'll be waiting on those. When I met with my lawyer, I had all my financial documents with me, including the wills from both my dad and mum. I also managed to get hold of my ex-husband's financial documents, which he keeps in a lockbox in his office. Additionally, I had brought over everything we had set up financially for our children. If it's everything, I'm confident I got most of it. My lawyer was pleased with how much I was able to gather. Ruth even handed over her and Bob's will to ensure I was taken care of in the divorce. My lawyer understands that I want a divorce immediately, but she wants to make sure she's thorough and not missing anything. I'm hoping to get the actual divorce papers from her in about 30 days. I'm not pushing her, though. I'm letting her do her job. Given all the texts, I know a lot of you were concerned that someone might reveal the truth sooner. However, they were so secretive that they didn't even tell their significant others what was happening. Once the slideshow ended, Tyler tried lunging at Jess, and Joe actually had to force him to sit down. Tyler was shouting. There were some pretty harsh words being thrown at Jess. She was told she'd regret this. Jess started crying and begging her parents for forgiveness. Bob looked his daughter in the eye and told her he'd never forgive her for this. Regardless of the fact she's his daughter, he said he didn't raise her to be this person. Jess has always been Jess is her dad's girl, so I think the cut her pretty deep. She's currently in the middle of a divorce and her parents were supporting her with her lawyer. They told her she is now completely cut off, both financially and physically. Tyler's dad was furious. According to Ruth, he looked like he was barely after the meeting. Tyler went straight home. I know this because we have a Ring doorbell camera, as well as a few cameras inside the house to keep an eye on the kids when we're not right next to them. When Tyler got home and saw that most of my and the kids' stuff was gone, he lost it. He started yelling and throwing things, and now the house is trashed with a few holes in it. The walls were just for decoration. When he didn't find us at home, he went into my dad's house. I had spent most of the day packing and moving things into my dad's house. While Tyler was at work, we were already at the cabin. Tyler tried to break down my dad's door with a baseball bat, but thankfully he failed. My dad's neighbor called the cops on him and he was arrested. His parents are refusing to bail him out. I had an appointment with my therapist today. I've been seeing her for a year now, ever since I started struggling with my dad's illness. It felt good to just cry and let everything out about how I was feeling. The session was really helpful and she gave me some tools to help work through my emotions with everything going on. I left feeling grounded and empowered. I had an appointment with my therapist today. I've been seeing her for about a year now, ever since I started struggling with my dad's illness. It felt good to just cry and let everything out about how I was feeling. The session was really helpful and she gave me some tools to help work through my emotions with everything going on. I left feeling grounded and empowered. I'm also planning to set up therapy for my children when we get back. I've just got back from the cabin. I'm going to figure out the best way to tell my kids. I know some people have said I shouldn't tell them, but I will, in an age-appropriate way. I don't want there to be secrets or lies between us. I've always tried to be as open and honest with them as possible, again in a way that's appropriate for their age. Just because they are small humans doesn't mean they don't deserve the truth. I've received a handful of people have been telling me I should stay because they say all men cheat. They also say I should work things out since most of our marriage was good. I refuse to believe that all men cheat. My parents were married for 20 years and after my mom passed, my dad never moved on. I watched my dad love my mom for 12 of those years and cherish her memory. I will not accept anything less than that kind of love. He never cheated, nor did she. I'm not sure when I'll be ready to move on. Falling in love is the last thing on my mind right now. I refuse to let Tyler win by destroying my belief in love completely. I will move on from this. Jess started blowing up my phone, demanding that I fix the situation and immediately blaming me. My lawyer advised me not to block the text, just in case they reveal any additional information I might be missing. I was playing the victim, but here's the thing. I never influenced Angie and Bob to cut contact with their daughter. They made that decision on their own. Jess even started blaming me for stealing the love of her life, which makes no sense since I introduced her to Tyler when he and I were dating. She also claimed that Tyler is only with me for the kids. Honestly, I know she was just trying to hurt me at that point. I didn't respond to her or Tyler because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. I've had about 200 missed calls from Tyler. He's been going back and forth, begging and pleading for my forgiveness, then threatening me because I don't have divorce papers. He's stuck in limbo. I also asked Angie and Ruth not to mention anything about the divorce to him. It's a bit petty, but it's my way of keeping him in that gray area. It's my way of getting back at him. At one point, he threatened to call the cops on me for kidnapping. Then he admitted Jess wasn't the only one. My lawyer is going to love that. He went from calling me a stuck-up bitch and threatening me to begging for forgiveness again. Honestly, reading those texts was a bit of a shock. I'd be lying if I said they didn't hurt and terrify me all at once. But I refuse to let them break me. I don't think Tyler is going to stay with Jess. I think he blames her for blowing up our marriage. They deserve each other, really. I was okay with a 50-50 custody split with Tyler initially, but after seeing his reaction, I no longer feel comfortable with that. So I'll likely be going for full custody. Jake has about 30 days of leave saved up and he's going to use it to help. Their kids and I are going to stay at my dad's house for a while. He'll be around in case Tyler shows up acting crazy again. He's been a huge help lately and I'm grateful to him. Last night after the kids went to bed, he hooked up his Xbox and we played Diablo 4 together to take my mind off things. It was fun in the middle of it all though. He did sort of confess that he's always had feelings for me, but he was clear not to. He told me not to say or do anything in response. He understands that a relationship isn't on my mind and won't be for a long time, but he just wanted to get it off his chest. He said he's felt this way since we were teenagers. Thanks again. Your comments, support messages and everything else have been a great source of encouragement. It's good to know I have an entire online community willing to stand by me. Your comments have been a great source of support and advice over the past few days when I was feeling overwhelmed and tempted to give up on leaving him. I know I deserve better and I can't accept his actions. He also asked if I was looking to get a divorce. I told him I was. He apologized for losing his cool and asked if there was any hope of us getting back together. I told him there wasn't. We did have a chat about the kids and he agreed to supervised visits, which is a relief. I had another meeting with my lawyer, but nothing major happened. As for Jake, nothing has changed. He hasn't taken back his confession, but as I mentioned before, it's my kids' health and well-being are still my main concern. Unfortunately, my dad's health is getting worse. He's now in the hospital with no immediate release date. Please send your thoughts and well wishes his way. My kids are adjusting well. We've scheduled a therapy appointment for them next week to help with the transition. My oldest has more questions than the others, but I'm waiting. Until the therapy session, I haven't had a chance to have any big conversations to ensure I handle them in the best way possible. On a brighter note, my oldest made tryouts for the traveling soccer league and the baby is doing great too. Hello everyone. I'm still getting daily messages and comments for an update, so here's what might be my final one. My dad passed away about a week after my last update. Even though I knew it was coming, it still feels like a gut punch. Thank you to everyone who kept him in your thoughts, it meant a lot. My marriage has officially ended. Once Tyler realized how serious I was about leaving him, he became compliant. My lawyer suggested a dissolution instead of a divorce, which was a lot quicker and went more smoothly. I have full custody while he works through his anger management and therapy. I'm not sure if I'll ever trust him fully with the kids again, but I'm in therapy too, as are my kids. I'm not making any decisions about that just yet. He gets supervised visits at a facility where there's plenty of staff and security and someone is always present. That happens once a week. He also gets video calls with the kids twice a week. I'd like to thank you all for your love and support throughout everything. The kids are adjusting pretty well. There are days when I can tell the changes affect them more, but they've gone through some big losses, so that's to be expected. I decided to give the baby my dad's first name. It just felt right. Thankfully, the baby is doing really well and thriving despite all the stress I've been under. As for me, I'm managing as best I can. I miss my dad like crazy and I'm still figuring out how to exist in a world without him. The grief is still very heavy. I'm also mourning my marriage. While I don't regret leaving Tyler, it still hurts deeply. However, I'm picking up the pieces and building my life without him. My mother-in-law, well, ex-mother-in-law now, and Angie have been incredible. They really allowed me to lean on them during these tough times, whether it's taking the kids for a bit or cooking dinner when I don't have the energy. I feel truly lucky to have them in my corner. Finally, to what many of you have been waiting to hear about Jake, he's back and I'm now in California. Jake tried to extend his leave, but the military said no. It was great having him here, especially in those first few days after my dad passed away. He picked up a lot of slack for me and I'll never be able to repay him for that. He's very patient and kind. I should say that nothing has happened between us romantically. He did hold me while I broke down after the kids went to bed several times. But that's the extent of it. No kissing or anything beyond that. He does call and text me multiple times a day, but right now, I just don't have any room in my life for romance. I'm carrying so much grief, and the weight of being a single mum has been heavy. Jake hasn't pushed me on anything. He reminded me that he meant every word he said and that he's willing to just be my friend until I decide I want more. I'd love to be the girl who jumps in with both feet, but I'm still dealing with the betrayal of my ex. I'm worried that I'd burn something out before it even started. So I asked for friendship and time to process everything else in my life before even considering a new relationship. He was happy to agree. As many of you guessed, Tyler and Jess are not a couple. He left her high and dry, but I don't wish misery on anyone. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a small sense of satisfaction seeing her life go up in smoke. She's been blacklisted from her family. For those who think that's weird, it's really not when you understand the bond one have with her family. Angie is like a surrogate mum to me. She gave me the safe intimacy talk and the period talk. She's also been there for me when I've cried over boys who broke my heart. She held my hand when I delivered my kids and has always called me her. My daughter practically knew my mum her whole life and was there when I was born. If anything had ever happened to my parents, Angie is who I would have gone to live with. It was even in my parents' will. Thank you for your kindness and understanding. Please just be gentle with me in the comments. I put off posting this for a few days because of how hostile some people were. And being called a liar doesn't sound too appealing right now. I probably won't post anything else for a while as I'm still trying to find my feet and settle into a new routine before bringing a brand new baby into the world. I might come back to this, but I might not. I do promise, though, that if anything happens with Jake and me, I'll update. I know a lot of you became invested. 5th update 1 month later. I just wanted to come back with a small update. The baby is here. He was born slightly premature. But we needed a night nurse. He was 5 pounds, 9 ounces and 19 inches, and he's absolutely beautiful. Angie was in the room with me when I had him, while my mother-in-law stayed with the other kids. My older two are obsessed with their baby brother. And it makes my heart so happy. My mother-in-law and Angie are taking turns spending nights and days with me for the first 6 weeks. Until we get acclimated. I told them they didn't have to, but they insisted. To be honest, I'm really grateful for it. I can feel the postpartum depression trying to drag me under. My mental health hasn't been great, knowing that this baby will never get to know or feel my dad's love. It's especially hard since this is the only grandchild he didn't get to meet. I miss him like crazy and wish he were still here. Jake was planning on staying in the military for another 2 years to retire. But they offered him early. I'm not going to get into the specifics of my retirement, or anything else that's going on with me or this situation. There was a separate issue at work, but he didn't do anything wrong, so within the next 6 months he'll be moving back home. He's going to try house hunting before he comes home, but since he can't take any leave to view places while working on his exit, there's a chance he'll temporarily stay with me until he finds a place. No, he isn't moving in permanently. Lol, he might even just his thinking of renting an apartment for a year before buying a house. There's also some drama with Tyler already because he's angry that I wouldn't let him in the room when I had the baby. I'll share more updates on that front when I'm not feeling too overwhelmed. Thanks for being there when I need to vent and get things off my chest. Have a wonderful day, and I hope everything goes your way until next time. Friends, this is my 6th update. Hi everyone. It's been a while since I last updated you all. I've missed chatting, but life has been keeping me very busy. So, to answer some questions first. Do Tyler's parents still talk to him? No. My mother-in-law cut him off almost instantly and went no contact. My father-in-law is very low contact and only speaks to him when he takes the kids to their supervised visits. Are there other women involved? I only know of one other girl. If there are more, I'm not aware of them. I'd rather not know. Shouldn't Jake and Jess be kept apart? They're siblings. They never had a good relationship. They were very low contact even before this came out. They didn't get along as kids. And that dynamic never changed as they got older. Looking back, how she treated him was a major red flag. As adults, they only ever spoke at family functions, and even then it was brief and surface level. What are you telling your children? You should let them process how they need to. The only one old enough to semi-understand what's happening is my oldest. I sat both of them down and simply said, "Mommy." I also told them that their dad and I aren't together anymore. I explained that their dad had done some things that I wasn't okay with, which meant that he wouldn't be living with us anymore. However, they could still see him and love him with all of their hearts. I acknowledged that it might be a little confusing, but reassured them that we both loved them so much and that would never change. I then asked if they had any questions or wanted to talk about it. My eldest had a few questions, which I answered honestly but in an age-appropriate and gentle way. They're still in therapy and I let them come to me if they want to talk about it. I don't push it on them. My goal has never been to weaponize the kids against him, and it's something I'll never do. He's their dad and I refuse to traumatize them any more than they've already been. Now onto the update. If you've read, as I said before, the baby is here and has been the calmest newborn I've ever had. He hardly cries and is always content and happy. He's reached all his milestone markers, even hitting some that aren't on the prem scale. It's such a relief and a blessing. The older two absolutely adore him and they're loving the extra attention from their grandparents. My husband is also called Grandma and Grandpa. When I went into labor, I told Tyler I was in labor, but didn't want him at the hospital. It is his child, so I was being courteous. He got really upset with me for taking away his right to see his child being brought into the world. I just turned off my phone to relax and distract myself. He actually showed up at the hospital, but had to be escorted off the property by security. It wasn't because he was violent, but because he wouldn't leave after I informed the nurses. I delivered at the hospital I work at, I'm an RN, and I didn't want him around since that incident. Tyler hasn't shown up for a single visit to see the kids. Initially, I sent him pictures of the baby and updates, but he never responded. Eventually, he blocked my number. After about a month, I asked my father-in-law to reach out to him. My father-in-law actually went to Tyler's house to do a wellness check because I was concerned something might be wrong, even though I don't love him anymore. There's still a part of me that will always care for him as the father of my children. It turns out he has a new girlfriend and just isn't interested in being a dad anymore. He even went as far as he even denied paternity, despite being the only person I've ever been with physically. Surprisingly, the kids seem okay with him not being around much. I didn't feel it was necessary to share the harsh things he said with them. They don't need that burden. Jake has been absolutely amazing. He had my favorite food delivered to the hospital after the birth. He FaceTimes and texts me regularly and chats with the kids. He's never been pushy and has let me set the pace. He never crosses any boundaries and even surprised me with a postnatal massage. He arranged everything, including childcare. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in months. He occasionally sends little gifts and food to the house, especially on my harder days. Jake has truly been a breath of fresh air. He'll be home in just over 3 months. I'm not going to lie, I've been really excited. I've been going to therapy regularly, which has helped me cope and become a better person and mother. I'm still devastated by my dad's passing, and grief has a way of catching me off guard. Sometimes I just sit in his office, where it smells the most like him, and cry. I was so blessed to have such a loving and amazing dad. My mother-in-law has been an absolute angel, and I can't thank her enough for being such a great support. My father-in-law and Angie's husband have also been incredibly kind and helpful. I don't know what I'd do without their love and support. I know it sounds a bit strange, but I'm actually quite relieved about the divorce and Tyler not being around. I'm really struggling with my kids at the moment. I didn't realize how long I'd been in that marriage until I was finally in a space where I didn't have to be. My therapist has really helped me to see things differently. I'm almost thankful I caught him cheating. I think that's why I was so calm and methodical during the process of leaving him. It was a final push I needed to break free. I'm going back to work next week, and I think I'm ready to find my new normal and get back into a routine. While my heart aches, I know my dad isn't here to see it. I feel ready to unlock this next chapter of my life. Cheers to the chapter of healing self-love, new beginnings and finding peace within. Chaos. Has anyone heard from Jess throughout all of this? I had proof of multiple affairs. He isn't really a good person either. So I'm not exactly applauding the ex-husband for this. But the karma is definitely bittersweet. She's been dragging out her divorce for a while and was already separated when her affair with Tyler began. For the record, I'm not the friend you can tell about cheating because I will snitch. She knew that. Looking back, I'm not surprised by any of it now. 7th Update 3. Hi everyone, I've got some news to share. Before I get into it, I just want to cover a few things. Many of you have been asking if Tyler is still not seeing the kids. The answer is no, he isn't. He's completely cut off contact. His dad was acting as a middleman to avoid direct communication between Tyler and me, but even that has stopped. Tyler told his dad that his girlfriend made him choose between her and the kids because I wouldn't communicate through her. I don't even know who she is. I told him I'd be fine using a third party to communicate about the kids, but it couldn't be someone who's a complete stranger to me and the kids. I suggested using his aunt, who has remained neutral during the divorce and everything else, but that wasn't good enough for him or his girlfriend. So he decided to cut all contact. He didn't see the kids for Christmas or New Year. And shortly after the new year he went full no contact. I'm managing the kids while working full-time. I'm so grateful for all the help I have. My mother-in-law is a huge help. Angie watches the kids while I work, as she and her husband are both retired. I usually come home to a clean house, happy kids and dinner on the stove. They truly are the biggest blessings. I want to give a huge shout out to single parents who do this completely on their own, with no help from anyone or the other parent. I can't even begin to imagine how much strength it takes to do it alone. My girlfriend, if that makes sense, he did kiss me for the first time at midnight on New Year's. It was cheesy, yes, but I absolutely loved it. I'm not ready to offer anything more right now, and he's been completely understanding of that. We have the occasional date night out, but most of our dates involve the kids. Like movie nights, going to the park, or just spending time at home playing with them. The kids adore him, and he adores them right back. I have so many pictures of him holding the baby, trying to soothe him to sleep, only to end up accidentally napping with him. It's so Jake is letting me set the pace and is always patient with me. I feel so lucky. I even told him that if he wanted to date other people, he could, but he looked at me like I'd slapped him and was adamant that I'm the only woman he wants to pursue. Sometimes I feel guilty that he's helping to heal a heart he didn't break. But he never hesitates to remind me that he's all in and will wait forever if he has to. It's incredibly reassuring and I couldn't ask for more. I waited so long to share this because I wanted Jake's stamp of approval. Before I continue sharing our love story, I let Jake read my posts and all of your comments. He may have gotten a bit full of himself with how much everyone is Team Jake, but he teases me about it. I love it. This man is so funny without ever being mean. He even said it's a relief to know you approve of him. He did create a Reddit account to check out my posts, with my approval. He'll likely be a silent follower, but don't be surprised if he pops up in the comments every now and then. Have a great day, and we'll catch up soon. Tyler, who is paying child support, has disappeared. How can he just walk away when he has 2 kids? How are the kids holding up? My heart breaks for them. Those charges are ridiculous. He can't just decide one day that he wants to take me to court for full custody. He needs to be more prepared. After 90 days, we can start the paperwork for abandonment and other processes. The lawyer explained it better than I can, but it was something along those lines. I highly doubt he'll pay it. He found out about my inheritance from my mom and dad during the dissolution and he seemed pretty angry that I had all this money and he wasn't getting any of it. If he does pay child support, it'll go straight into I've also set up a savings account for the kids, which they'll have access to when they become adults. The kids seem fine, they're still in therapy and I'll continue taking them until they feel like they no longer need it. If the therapist agrees, I'll stop. They don't really ask about them. My ex-husband didn't send any Christmas cards or anything. When I told the kids he wasn't coming, they seemed fine. They haven't asked about him since. I've started feeling like maybe he wasn't as good to them when I wasn't around. They've just accepted it. It seemed like they were okay with him being gone. 8 months later, I'm still here, and it's been a year since I made my first post on Reddit. The morning I discovered my ex-husband's affair, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported me on this journey. You've all been such a blessing, whether for advice, kind words, or just a listening ear. I feel so lucky to have developed my own little community here on Reddit. First things first, I meant to update sooner, but as Jake mentioned in his comment, I was locked out of my account. Someone changed the password and email to my Reddit account. You'll never guess who it was. Let's rewind about a month ago. I was cooking dinner for Jake and the kids while Jake was outside playing with them in the backyard. Suddenly my front door opened, and I figured it was one of my in-laws. I was surprised when Jess showed up at my house. She has a key because she helps out a lot. I was chopping carrots and she just walked in. I told her to leave. I wasn't even concerned with how she got into my house at that moment. I keep my doors locked 24/7, but I just wanted her out and figured I'd deal with the rest later. She started screaming and calling me psycho for threatening her with a knife. Jake heard the screams and rushed inside. His immediate reaction was to restrain Jess because he thought she was hurting me, even though there was a solid 10 to 15 feet between us. He dragged her out of the house. I told her to leave. Jess was screaming that she would ruin my life. She said she only came over to ask for forgiveness. Then she called the cops and made up this elaborate story. She said we'd set her up at my house and that I tried to stab her and that Jake was punching her. She had no proof, of course. I have cameras covering the main areas of the house. I showed the cops the footage and they left, taking Jess with them. Since that night, Jake has stayed at my house every night to make sure I feel safe. Afterwards, Jess hacked into every single one of my social media accounts, including Reddit. I never changed my password since everything blew up. I never thought she'd stoop even lower. She posted some truly awful and hateful things on my Facebook and Instagram. Thankfully, she didn't manage to post anything on Reddit before I got it back. She even spammed my workplace with complaints and fabricated stories about me. I'm a nurse at our local hospital, and I was suspended for a week while they investigated. Thankfully, after everything was looked into and everything, I told my boss. HR and everyone else was proven true. I was welcomed back to work. I filed for a restraining order against Jess for both myself and my children. She tried to pick up my oldest from school without anyone's knowledge. Thankfully, I had already spoken to the school about this and given them a strict list of people who are allowed to pick up my child. I told them to send everyone else away and call the cops if necessary. Especially after Tyler got violent in front of the kids a while back. The school handled it perfectly. They escorted Jess off school grounds and kept my child safe. My child is safe and close until they see me for pickup. I have an emergency restraining order approved, but I'll need to go to court within the next month for a more permanent one. I'll keep you updated on how that goes. As for how she got into my house, she must have had a key from when we were growing up together. I got the locks changed immediately just to be safe because Angie and her husband haven't spoken to her and she hasn't had access to them or their home. There's no real update on Tyler. He still hasn't reached out to see the kids or asked about them. He's basically been a ghost. About a week ago, while we were having dinner with Jake, my oldest said she wished Jake was her dad. She also mentioned how her real dad never played with them and was really mean when I wasn't home or looking. That just confirmed my fears. They were too accepting of him being gone, and now I understand why. I heard from my mother-in-law and father-in-law that Tyler is already remarried and expecting another baby. My mother-in-law said they received both a baby shower and wedding invitation in the mail. I feel bad for his new wife, but the kids are truly wonderful. My eldest is still in therapy, but the therapist has only positive things to say after their sessions. She did mention that my eldest brought up the idea of calling Jake Dad, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet. Jake has made it clear that once we're married, he fully intends to adopt. The kids, that's a conversation for another day. I don't want to stop my eldest from building a strong bond with Jake, but it still feels too soon, you know. As for my middle child, it seems like they've completely forgotten about Tyler and our ray of sunshine. I've honestly never met a happier. The baby is now babbling, smiling and laughing. It's incredible. I'm truly blessed with such amazing kids. Jake is well. You know how it goes. I've never felt such happiness before. He was genuinely concerned by how many people were commenting and asking if we were still together. He said you should update right away and let them know we're still together. I wish you could hear how funny he really is. I've officially allowed him to call me his girlfriend, although he says I've practically been his girlfriend this whole time. He's been sleeping over almost every night. He's worried he might show back up, but I think it's because he hates being away from the kids. Whenever he's at work or not at my house, he texts whoever is with the kids asking for picture updates and talks about how much he misses them. It's actually really sweet. He continues to let me he sets the pace, but gives me a gentle nudge when I need it. He's even attended a few of my therapy sessions to better understand what I need from him in this relationship. Jake is honestly everything I could have asked for. I'm so lucky to love him. Thanks for being here, friends. 9th update, 1 month later. Hi everyone. I'm making this quick since this is the first break I've had from my busy life in weeks. I had my restraining order court date. While I didn't get a permanent restraining order, I did secure a 7-year one. Apparently, in my state, it's really hard to get a permanent restraining order. I'm happy with the outcome, even though I didn't get a permanent restraining order. If Jess continues to bother me during or after the 7-year order, I can take her back to court or have her arrested. This is the last you'll hear from me about Jess. I love sharing my life with you all, but I don't want her to use anything I say, whether it's under a false name or protected identity, to claim I've been breaking the restraining order. On a happier note, Jake, the kids and I have decided that since he's spending so much time at my house, he's going to move in. Jake is going to move in. He's basically just a storage unit at my house. I've known Jake my entire life, so I'm comfortable with this decision. Tyler is still a ghost, with 0 contact attempts. Their kids are beautiful, loved, and I'm sorry this is short and sweet, but I've been really busy recently. Between sleep regression, lawyer meetings, coursework and my older two's extracurricular activities, I haven't had much time to write. I hope you're all doing well. I'm writing this 10th update 3 months later. I've got some news to share, and I'm not sure how else to say it. I'll just come out with it. Jess was found deceased in her apartment from a substance overdose at the end of July. It was a shock to everyone. Jess was the kind of girl who never touched substances in her life, even back in the day when I would occasionally. Jess would smoke marijuana and we would have arguments about it. I am still coming to terms with her death. She was my best friend and we had a lot of history together. She wrote me a letter and I will share one significant part of it with you. She explained. She saw that I was stuck in an unhappy, loveless marriage and wanted to help me get out of it. She didn't know how, so one night when she started using substances, she decided the only way to get rid of Tyler was by sleeping with him. From there, things spiraled and she fell in love with him. She became jealous. Because he would tell her pretty lies and then go home to me. I don't forgive her for what she did to me, but I understand. I get it. Jake has been blaming himself in a way. Yes, he was angry at Jess, but he never wanted her to harm herself. None of us did. He's been struggling, but in true Jake fashion. Jake has been doing his best to be there for everyone else since what happened. He stayed with his parents for the first month to take care of them and would check on me at least twice a day. He's still not really opened up about it, so I'm trying to support him in every way I can. Angie's not doing well either. She lost a child, and even though she cut Jess off, that was still her daughter and she still loves her. I've been stopping by their house daily to check on her and bring meals, just to make sure everyone is eating. Jake's dad has been handling things much better than I have. I always thought Jess was closer to him, but he told me I was being heartless. Once I saw the woman she was becoming, I stopped thinking of her as my daughter. I already grieved the loss of my daughter a long time ago, so there's that. Just to clarify, nobody is blaming me for what happened. They made the choice. I made it clear to them from the start that I wouldn't blame them for cutting Jess out of their lives. They wanted to keep their relationship with their daughter or sister, and Angie even told me it wasn't my fault. We hugged and cried together, but we're not sure if we don't know if Jess's overdose was intentional or if the letters were just a backup in case something happened. They weren't out in the open by her body, they were tucked away in a drawer. I want to say that even though I had a lot of hate in my heart for Jess, there was also a lot of love. She hurt me. I was betrayed by her, but if she hadn't been, I'd still be stuck in a loveless marriage, feeling indifferent towards Tyler, and I wouldn't be as happy as I am now. She did it in a messed up way, but in a sense she freed me from my shackles. I'll always love her, and her loss is something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. Edith. Tyler is still MIA from the kids' loose. He hasn't reached out. And I'm not chasing after him to be involved. The kids deserve more from their dad. The kids are doing just wonderful. They've really taken to Jake. And even the baby now calls Dadder. After Jake and I had a long talk about it, I've decided that if the kids want to call him Dad, I won't get involved. My oldest made the transition from calling him Uncle Jake to Dad, while my middle child still calls him Uncle Jake, and that's fine with me. I'm letting them pursue that relationship however they feel comfortable. Jake has started coaching their indoor soccer league and they love having him there. Their house has a new sense of peace and seeing how happy the kids are makes my heart so full. I also had a conversation with them about Aunt Jess being in heaven with Pupper and they took it well, probably because I haven't seen her much in the last year. Tyler's parents have continued to be just as involved and are actually really close to Jake's parents now. They've all been so wonderful, it honestly feels like I'm dreaming sometimes. As for Angie and her husband, they've stepped back a little from the kids to deal with I completely understand that grief takes time to heal. Angie said that spending time with the kids helps her to heal. About 2 weeks after Jess passed away, Jake asked me to marry him. I told him I wasn't saying no, but I wanted him to think about it for a bit longer. He wasn't making a rash decision in the midst of grief. A month later, once things had started to settle and we were slowly getting back into our routines, he asked me again. He had this whole speech about how he'd wanted this for as long as he could remember. He even mentioned how, when we were kids, he told me he said he'd marry me when we grew up. Yes, it's true. He said that when I was about 5. I said yes. We're having a long engagement. I don't want to jump right back into marriage. So we're taking our time and haven't even started wedding planning yet. Maybe in 2025 we'll begin making plans. Honestly, we've been discussing the possibility of a small ceremony with his parents and the kids. We'll see what happens. Life has been a bit of a roller coaster recently, but I feel so lucky to have so many wonderful people in my life who love me and my kids. Thanks for being here with me on this journey.